Okay, so the market is really walking on a tightrope this week. I mean, after a pretty wild Friday and a weekend jam-packed with news, traders are on high alert. So let's break down what's happening and figure out what it all means for the days ahead.
And right at the heart of all this tension, it's one single event. People are literally calling this the week NVIDIA changes everything. And you know what? That's not an exaggeration. We're going to unpack exactly why, but first, let's get the lay of the land.
We're going to tackle this in 4 quick parts. First, the tariff whiplash that's already giving traders a major headache. Second, the geopolitical wildcard playing out with Iran. Then, of course, the main event, NVIDIA's earnings. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about the mindset you're going to need to navigate this storm. All right, let's dive right in. The first major shock to the system this week, it's this whiplash-inducing reversal on trade policy. Seriously, it took the market from total euphoria to high anxiety in less than 48 hours.
So here's how it went down. On Friday afternoon, we got news that the Supreme Court struck down a key tariff policy, and the market loved it. I mean, the NASDAQ jumped almost a full %. But then over the weekend, boom, a new 10% global tariff gets announced using a completely different legal authority. All of a sudden, that big rally on Friday, it's looking pretty fragile.
And this right here, this is exactly what traders mean when they talk about a whipsaw. It's just this violent back-and-forth price action, all driven by conflicting news. So the big takeaway here is, if you are holding long positions from Friday, well, you're waking up to a completely different world on Monday morning.
And, as if that tariff uncertainty wasn't enough, we've got another major factor cranking up the tension, a geopolitical wildcard with Iran. Let's take a look at how this is starting to ripple through the market.
So check this out. The U.S. now has 2 full aircraft carrier strike groups in the Persian Gulf. Now, in military terms, that is not a subtle signal. It's a really clear sign of escalating pressure, especially as this deadline for a nuclear deal gets closer and closer. And of course, the market is reacting exactly how you'd expect it to. Crude oil has already surged past $66 a barrel, hitting a brand new high for the year. This is the market, plain and simple, pricing in the risk of a major conflict in a supercritical energy region.
And it's not just oil that's on the move. As the risk level goes up, you see traders doing what they always do. They're fleeing to safety. Gold, the classic safe haven asset, has surged past $5,100 an ounce. What that tells us is that this isn't isolated. It's a broad-based move away from risk across the board.
All right, so all of this brings us to the absolute center of gravity for the week. You've got tariff chaos, you've got geopolitical storms swirling, and yet one single company's earnings report has the power to define the entire market's direction. And we are talking, of course, about NVIDIA. So why is this such a huge deal? Well, this report is about way more than just one company. NVIDIA's GPUs, they're the backbone of this whole AI revolution, right? So their results are seen as a barometer for the entire AI industry. The thing is, the market is pricing in absolute perfection, which means any hint of disappointment could trigger a massive sell-off, especially in tech. The risk is really skewed to the downside here.
And hey, just to put this in perspective for you, there are 868 companies reporting earnings this week. 868. And yet all eyes, all the focus is on just one. That should tell you everything you need to know about how sky-high the stakes are for Wednesday.
So with all these powerful forces colliding, you've got tariffs, geopolitics, and this make-or-break earnings report. How in the world do you even approach a week like this? Well, this is where we need to shift from talking about the what to the how.
So what's the vibe out there? Well, this chart says it all. Retail investors are getting really nervous. Bullish sentiment is hitting a 12-week low. We're talking only about a third of folks expecting the market to be higher in 6 months. You can practically feel the fear in the air. And it's not just a feeling either. The pros are putting their money where their mouth is. They're getting defensive, moving cash into safer sectors. Think utilities and consumer staples. This tells us pretty clearly they aren't buying this current rally and are getting ready for a potential downturn.
And this brings us to what is probably the single most important strategic takeaway for a week like this one. The traders who consistently make money, especially in these high uncertainty environments, they don't try to guess what's going to happen. They don't predict, they react.
Okay, so how do you actually put that into practice? Well, here's a simple 3-step playbook. Step 1, protect your capital first. This is a week for preservation, not for chasing huge gains.
Step 2, do your homework before the session begins. Know your key support and resistance levels inside and out. And step 3, maybe the hardest one, be patient. Let the market show its hand before you commit and make your move.
All right, so to sum it all up, here's what to watch. Keep your eyes glued to oil and gold. Think of them as your real-time geopolitical dashboard. Watch the tech sector right at the open to see if that tariff news completely reverses Friday's rally. And of course, brace for impact around NVIDIA on Wednesday. But above all, your mindset should be about preservation first. This is a week to protect, not to predict. And that leaves us with one final thought to carry into this crazy week. You know, when the news is moving this fast and the stakes are this high, your approach matters more than anything else. So the real question you have to ask yourself is, in a week like this, are you a predictor or are you a reactor?